commends Guyanese authorities for their support in curtailing the illicit drug trade, noting that that situation is not unique to this country.
PNCR Shadow Home Affairs Minister Deborah Baca has listed several recommendations for the improvement of the security sector as budget debate continues in the National Assembly.
And a man is dead and his spouse wounded after an attempted murder-suicide at Durban Street Lodge.
And of course, we'll bring you the latest sporting action in the Diamond Mineral Water and NCN Sport News. Hello, good evening. I am Janelle Rassaud.
And I'm Paul Moore.
With this edition of the 6 o'clock news for today, Wednesday, February 18, 2009. Here's what's happening. Paul.
Thanks, Janelle. 1 year after the horrific Bartica massacre, hundreds turned out at an international memorial service to remember those who were slain. During another service, Prime Minister Samuel Hines unveiled a plaque to commemorate the 3 police officers who were gunned down while on duty at the Bartica police station. We'll bring you that story a little later in the newscast. PNCR Shadow Home Affairs Minister Deborah Baca has dished out a list of recommendations for the improvement of the security sector, including what she termed a serious crime prevention plan. Ms. Baca says this plan should not only deal with enforcement, corrective institutions, and criminal justice, but many other social issues. Here are details.
PNCR Shadow Home Affairs Minister Deborah Baca delivered a 50-minute presentation to the National Assembly on the party's grouses about the security sector, but did not fall short of making recommendations for improvement. The presentation started with a reflection on the Lusignan, Bartica and Lindo Creek massacres, as yesterday marked 1 year since 12 persons were killed in Bartica. The practicing attorney at law touched on murders, which she said increased by 40%, domestic violence, drugs and gun smuggling, traffic, birth certificates and torture by the security forces. And as it relates to traffic, the police force and Guyanese were commended for what Ms. Baca saw as a decrease in road fatalities. She also laid before the House a list of recommendations that can be used in the revival of public safety in Guyana. One such recommendation is the implementation of what she termed a serious crime prevention plan that takes into account societal ills.
The emphasis on a serious crime prevention plan that deals not only with enforcement, corrective institutions and the criminal justice system, but in equal measure, it must deal with deficiencies in our education system, the absence of opportunity for employment, despite what was said, poverty, marginalization and discrimination, the breakdown in our family structure, which structure, sir, remains the foundation of our society.
Youth empowerment and the reintroduction of the national service were 2 other components of that recommendation. But there was one other recommendation that Ms. Baca thought was necessary to improving the local security sector.
We should seek, either as a government, or as a National Assembly, to invite corporate Guyana to fund scholarships to the University of Guyana or to further field to our young people who will study relevant areas and come back to work in the forensic unit that is to be set up to do studies in criminology and in the modern policing, because we need a cadre of young, bright people at the cutting edge of technology and science if we're going to make that cold case unit a reality, and if we're going to transit our Guyana police force and indeed our disciplined forces from the 20th century formally into the 21st century.
Government has made a $13.6 billion budgetary allocation to the security sector this year, which Home Affairs Minister Clement Rohi thinks is adequate to further the mandate of the disciplined forces.
I think the money is evenly spread. I think in the same way as we got value for money in 2008, we will get value for money in 2009. All we have to do is to make sure that the money and the projects move quickly.
Still on the budget debate in the National Assembly last evening, Human Services Minister Priya Manik Chand said government continues to place emphasis on the fight against trafficking in persons. The minister made this comment as she passionately responded to comments made by opposition member Valda Lawrence the previous day. Mark Murray has more.
The main opposition party, the PNCR One Guyana, says human trafficking continues to be an issue of concern. This was relayed by its member Valda Lawrence in her presentation to the National Assembly as the budget debate continued. Ms. Lawrence pointed out that Guyana is still a Tier 2 country because it fails to provide evidence on the increasing efforts to combat trafficking in area of law enforcement.
What are we doing, Mr. Speaker? Are we awaiting another sanction from the U.S. government? Why aren't we working on the recommendations given? Perhaps the minister will tell this honorable House how her ministry is dealing with this issue.
But Human Services Minister Priya Manik-Chan re-emphasized a position she held for a very long time that Guyana does not have a significant number of human trafficking as highlighted by the U.S. She noted that government has always been fighting to improve the situation and continues to strive for the protection of trafficking in persons victims.
Is a member of this honorable House standing and with a wide brush painting persons, painting our country, painting our people, relying on another country's report about us that was inaccurate in the first place, painting us in a light that says we have trafficking. Incidentally, Mr. Speaker, we have trafficking. Trafficking is deviant human behavior. And where you have human beings, you will have deviant human behavior. What we do not have is significant numbers. And if we don't have significant numbers of trafficked persons, we will not have significant numbers of prosecutions and convictions.
The Human Services Minister further stated that more provisions are being made this year for the fight against trafficking in persons. She believes that with government interventions, Guyana will soon be removed from its tier status.
We have made it very clear that trafficking in persons is an offense. It is inhumane. It is man's inhumanity to man. And even one case is too much for us, and it will be treated seriously. Hence our efforts in January of this year and our extra expenditure at ensuring that there were prosecutors who are better trained than just the police prosecutors. And so we're going to address this matter aggressively, but we maintain as a government, and I would hope as a country, now that you have this information at hand, we maintain that we are not a country that should be on the U.S.'s radar as a country with significant numbers of victims of trafficking.
The minister told the House that since the law related to trafficking in persons was in act, no more than 20 persons have been prosecuted. And this, she believes, is evident that the human trafficking is not rampant in the country. Mark Moore reported for the NCN News.
1 year after the horrific Bartica massacre, hundreds turned out at an interfaith memorial service to remember those who were slain. During another service, Prime Minister Samuel Hines unveiled a plaque to commemorate the 3 police officers who were gunned down while on duty at the Bartica police station. More from Adeli Rampasad.
Prime Minister Samuel Hines notes that the memories of the Bartica massacre, in which 12 persons were brutally gunned down, remains fresh in the minds of citizens. He believes that this incident was a great test for Guyana, but has urged persons to find the strength to cope with negative forces.
That individually we should adjust our lives appropriately. Also, that we should strengthen the relations between us, that we should stand together for good, that we should stand against evil, and we should resist the temptations when it comes to us.
However, he has encouraged Barticians to find comfort in the fact that many of the perpetrators of both Bartica and Lusignan massacres have been brought to justice. He notes that members of the security forces are most at risk than any other group of persons and need support to continue their work. Prime Minister Samuel Hines unveiled a memorial plaque at the Bartica police station to remember police officers Zahir Zakir, Shane Fredericks and Ron Osborne, who lost their lives. Over at the Bartica Stelling, scores of Barticians also joined in patriotic renditions, religious songs and collective prayers to pay their respects. Presidential Advisor on Governance Gail Teixeira believes that nothing can justify what occurred and has described the callous acts as sheer evil. Mere weeks after the Lusignan massacre, gunmen went on a brutal rampage in the usually peaceful community of Bartica, leaving 12 persons, including 3 policemen, dead.
This forced government to beef up security in the area and set up a facility to counsel persons who were left traumatized by the incident. Others who perished were Edwin Jilks, Dexter Adrian, Irving Ferreira, Dionarine Singh, Ronald Gomes, Ashraf Khan, Abdul Yassin, Errol Thomas, and Baldio Singh. Reporting for the NCN 6 o'clock news, Adeli Rampersad.